This is 5 Minutes with Maurice, and today's episode revolves my downstairs neighbors and your legal system. Now, I've been arrested 3 times in my life, twice in Texas, once in Illinois. Traffic citations, unpaid traffic citations, I should say. In Illinois, returning from Europe, prior to leaving, there was a traffic citation I was supposed to pay. Time elapsed by the time I returned, and some officer in Chicago, the Chicago area, decided to arrest me and on my way back to Milwaukee commuting from work. So the other 2 times in Texas, I was just poor at the respective times. Each arrest was less than a month apart, I think. Maybe even a week apart or something like that. Where I'm from, being arrested is a completely absurd proposition. Going to jail is for criminals, right? Funny how perspectives change when life is actually lived as opposed to a prism fashioned by who and whatever manufactures your social, environmental outlooks prior to you actually walking your path in life. My first arrest was when I was maybe 22, 23. I remember wondering why arresting me for traffic citations or unpaid traffic citations that I couldn't afford, and that the courts refused to allow me to perform community service in lieu of payment for, why that was more reasonable, arresting me, than new laws that started allowing recreational drug users to be left alone if they were in possession of whatever was deemed a small quantity. Who made that rule? Who determines what small quantity is? Unpaid traffic citations due to lack of money or time expiration, let's say, in my case from Europe, versus drug abuse. Actually, I still don't reconcile justifying being arrested for unpaid traffic fines and fees as opposed to letting any drug user go. So that begs the question of who is making these rules. And that leads me to my downstairs neighbors, a father and a son. Son looks like he should be living on his own, but perhaps he just looks mature, or perhaps he's just a product of a generation raised by people my age. Perhaps there are valid economical merits for living with your parents and staying on your parents' health care until you're 26 or older. Who am I to judge? But the son, downstairs, is a pothead. He smokes marijuana. A lot. Now, what I am presenting here is not about what anyone thinks about the legalization or prosecution of marijuana issues. I have my very hardline stance about drugs, including nicotine, caffeine, alcohol, marijuana, and the various narcotics. And yes, what I just listed are all drugs people use or quote unquote abuse. So this is not a PSA about drug use or my perspectives and proclivities about drugs. This is about rules and legal processes. Right now, I live in an older 2-story house that was converted into a 2-unit upper and lower living space. In Wisconsin, these types of rental conversions are common, but it's an older home and connected to an equally aged lower living space. The rules of the management company here insist there is no smoking, marijuana, cigarettes, vaping, nothing. While I hold a personal constitution against drug use, I recognize that labels are socially manufactured. What your culture lauds as acceptable, another culture may insist is deviant, right? And even beyond that, it is commonplace for societies to change positions and rules on a matter. Remember, once upon a time, in one part of the world, it was taboo for a woman to reveal her ankles. Women in those areas wore lengthy clothing. Simultaneously, on another side of that same world, women were practically naked. Places in South America and Africa, for instance. Today, we can still find that same dichotomy. Cultures in Arabian lands can be stark from nude beaches just hundreds of miles north in Europe. So, I respect that society changes and rules change. But right now, the current rule that I consented to, same as my downstairs neighbors, states that smoking is prohibited. In tonight's inaugural episode of Rules and Questions, I'll delve into things like who made the marijuana rules, who stands to gain from those rules, and more. But for now, if I pursue a complaint against my downstairs neighbors for violating rules, and yes, I've gone through talking to the neighbors, contacting law enforcement. Yeah, I've done what's reasonable, what you would reasonably expect of someone who feels they've been infringed upon. But for now, if I pursue a complaint against my downstairs neighbors for violating rules that are not only housing management and community policy, but are also local ordinance, state statute, and federal law, if I pursue a complaint against my downstairs neighbors for inducing throat burning, eye irritation, and discomfort that forces me to open my own apartment windows and the front door while keeping the heater on because it's still the middle of March, and in Wisconsin, this is Wisconsin. Wisconsin's winters start the first week of September and don't end until the first week of June. We just had nearly 3 feet of snowfall in the past few days. And I still remember recovering from ramifications of ill-fated social regulations imposed upon business owners like me during the COVID-19 affected years. I vacated residency at a Sheraton hotel and moved into a tent for 2 months. It was the first day of June and it snowed that day. I remember. So Wisconsin is still in winter, but I'm dealing with a pothead who is forcing me to live like I'm back in a tent because the downstairs neighbors aren't following the rules. If I pursue a complaint against my downstairs neighbors, the rigmarole of legal procession from addressing the neighbors, addressing the apartment management company, and addressing law enforcement, what results potentially is just a dubious and precarious process whereby enforcement of a rule potentially devolves into a scenario whereby I have to consider a legal remedy through a court system. A court system that costs me money and time, and whereby being right is not enough for an attorney to take my case because there isn't enough money at stake for most attorneys. Unless you happen to be an attorney, know one who won't mind taking a worthless case, or maybe one who owes you a favor, for which I would not recommend calling in that favor for a minor marijuana case. Otherwise, you have to wade through a cockamamie ordeal just to resolve a simple domestic matter, unless you are more cognizant of the legal system and understand that you have to find a way to turn this minor domestic matter into a major monetarily rewarding case matter. And yes, if you're savvy enough, there is a way to make this scenario that I just presented, that I'm currently in, worthwhile for an attorney to accept your case, pro bono even. But why is this devolution of resolution to a domestic marijuana complaint so much more incomparable to being arrested for not paying traffic fines, for instance? Whether poverty is the reason behind failure to pay a fine, why the disparity between an unpaid traffic fine and a domestic marijuana violation? Who is making these rules? I'm not. It doesn't seem like reasonable minds of people who have to live with these rules are making the rules either. I don't know. We'll discuss more tonight on the Rules and Questions podcast. Until then, rethink government.